everybody, my name is Doug Bird and welcome to the next episode of All Ride. We are super stoked about this particular episode because today we're going to be bringing you something that we've been working on behind the scenes for about 6 to 8 months. It's a brand new segment. We're calling it All the Gear and No Idea. And no, that's not a dig at you, the viewer. That's more speaking to the fact that as cyclists and mountain bikers, we generally want all the gear, but sometimes don't have an idea of what's best going to suit our needs. So we're going to try and close the loop on that by reviewing different products within the space of the cycling world or environment. To help us do that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Dale Holmes. The man is very experienced, I think 5 to 7 years in the industry as an industrial
designer.
There we go, that's actually my fourth take on it. And not only is he a great industrial designer and he's specializing in suspension kinematics, the man can absolutely shred too. So without further ado, I think it's time to take a look at our first bike for our All the Gear No Idea segment. Let's go.
So e-bikes are all the rage at the moment. The first bike we thought we'd review is the Trek Powerfly 7. The Trek Powerfly 7 is Trek's 130mm full suspension trail e-bike. So Trek has opted to use the popular Bosch e-bike system. This is charged by plugging into a regular power socket. The Trek Powerfly 7 features a RockShox Revelation fork and a RockShox Deluxe rear shock. It's equipped with a Shimano SLX and XT drivetrain and runs on 27.5-inch 2.8 plus tires mounted on Bontrager 40mm rims. Let's have a look at the kinematics of this bike. So, why is this important? This will give you an indication of the ride feel of the bike and also an idea of how the bike pedals. So the suspension layout is Trek's ABP system. This is essentially a linkage-driven single pivot. This means there's no interruption in the link between the rear wheel and the front triangle. The result is lots of trail feedback and a pretty direct ride feel. It uses a pretty progressive leverage ratio. The result will be pretty smooth, supple suspension off the top, which will ramp up nicely for those big hits. The anti-squat value is pretty high, which means this bike will pedal well. The only downside to that is you may notice some pedal feedback. Now that we've had a look at this bike on paper, let's go see how it performs on the trail.
So with any review, I think it's important to create the context or the field of play in which the tests are being done. With that in mind, I think it's important to cover the categories of mountain biking, starting off with marathon. Marathon speaks to long distance riding with not technical trail, generally made up of anything from tar roads to dirt roads to jeep tracks, and if there is trail, it's generally not going to be pushing you too hard. Next up is XEO. It's very much performance driven, lapped racing, high intensity, loads of technical obstacles. It really challenges you both mentally and physically. Then moving on to the trail segment, which to be honest is probably the broadest of the lot, and that it incorporates so many different aspects. It generally speaks to nice long days on the trails if you're up for it, but nothing that's overly technical. But also, having said that, if you do want to push your limits, you absolutely can. Finally, rounding things off with enduro, there you see gravity coming into the fray. Things get a lot faster, a lot more technical, and of course there's definitely more consequence. So Trek placed the Powerfly 7 and the trail riding segment, touching on marathon as well. So with that in mind, we're heading over to Tokai to the Fastbay Trail to put it to the test.
Okay, so let's see how she handles uphill. First thing you'll notice is the Bosch system has a couple of modes, and obviously the more assistance you put on, the shorter your battery is going to last. So if you're expecting to spend a couple hours in the saddle, you're going to be wanting to ride in Tour or Eco and only Turbo when you really want to just get up a steep climb. Generally this thing handles climbs amazingly. Big plus tires, plenty of grip, especially in these kind of loose conditions. Suspension, small bump sensitivity is really good. You might find yourself riding a shock in open mode on the climbs just because you're going so much faster than you usually would. And yeah, a real pleasure to climb with. I mean, this is really the point of an e-bike, is to be able to just climb like you're on fire. So yeah, it's an awesome ride. You can actually enjoy the uphills now. Okay, this is dropping into Fastbay. Let's see how she goes downhill. First drop. Here we go. Number 2. That's it. Feeling pretty stable. Here we go. Let's see how she goes. So this bike's got around a 67 degree head angle, which is more than enough for 130mm trail bike. Not the slackest around, but feels perfectly suited on these trails, and not finding any places where it feels too steep, so it's all good. In the corners though, it requires quite a lot of muscling to get it to do what you want, and that's mostly because the chainstays are pretty long, and that's the result of just the size of the e-bike motor. Pretty difficult to fit the tire in there, so we gotta raise those chainstays a bit, and yeah, but once you're going, put a bit of body language in, turns just fine. And these dual brakes are doing a fantastic job considering the weight of this bike, especially because of the 203 rotors on there. So, approaching some drops, see how the suspension handles it. Oh, getting loose. Oh, let's send it. Yeah, there we go. And handle that just fine. Little whip, there we go. So, small bumps are pretty good too. Yeah, suspension does just fine and this kind of stuff. Right. Oh, yeah. A little huck. Surprising you can still huck this bike, even though it is an e-bike and on the slightly heavier side, but it's still a pile of fun. To the corner. Now 25 k's an hour, the motor's cut out, so pedaling becomes quite hard work. That's all good. And that's that.
Cool, so it's been a day of shredding on this thing. What is your top line overview of the Powerfly 7?
So yeah, I mean, super capable bike. Really good suspension in terms of taking in all the bumps and sort of pedaling and taking all the bumps uphill as well. And yeah, I think I've got on well with the spec in general. The Shimano stuff is super robust, and the Bosch e-bike system is really smooth, and the power delivery is also sort of pretty predictable. And yeah, so all around very capable, very fun, flickable e-bike. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this.
And if you were going to change anything on this bike for your specific style of riding, which is obviously a bit faster and a bit more gnarly, what would those changes be?
So the only things I could really comment on are sort of cockpit changes, which are, you know, everyone changes cockpits. It's kind of just how it suits your feel and whatever. It comes with a 70mm stem. I'll definitely drop that to around 50. Put a 780 handlebar on there, just get it a bit wider on the cockpit. And then I think I'd also upgrade the fork. Either change it to sort of around 150mm travel and put a charger damper in, I think. The Revelation's a good fork, but just lacks a little bit on the small bump sensitivity, and I think this bike's sort of modern geometry would suit a 150mm fork. So those would be the two main changes I think I'd do, but other than that, it's pretty much ready to roll.
In closing, folks, I think there's one elephant in the room that needs to be addressed, and that is the fact that we believe e-bikes are here to stay. If you're a mountain biking purist and you don't really enjoy e-bikes, or you have an issue with them, our opinion is that you're probably just going to have to get used to it because they're not going anywhere. That being said, if you are a beginner and you're looking to get into the sport, yes, an e-bike is a great option, but it won't automatically mean that you're going to be a better rider. It's the same token, if you're a good rider and you're looking to improve your technical skills, an e-bike can really assist in that because it makes your transition times between trails that much faster. One thing I did notice today on a few of the trails where I was behind Dale, especially on the descents, he wasn't all that much faster, if at all, because the e-bike motors cut out at a certain top speed, and it essentially comes down to your ability to navigate the trail, and the trail for the most part manages your speed anyway. Where you see the big differences is of course on the climbs. So if you're an amateur and you're faster than experienced people on the climbs, be responsible about that. Don't try and drop into trails ahead of a big group that you know are shredders. As much as we're saying that about amateurs, if you are a competent rider, just be rad about those around you, or for those around you that are trying to learn and progress. We want to nurture people into the sport, we want to grow the sport, and I suppose if we're doing that, then everybody's winning. So folks, That's it from our first episode of All the Gear and No Idea. It's important that we get your comments and hear from you about what you would like to see next or in upcoming episodes. A big thanks to Dale for joining us. You're going to definitely be seeing more of this man in the future. Until next week, hit that subscribe button, keep the wheels on the ground, and we look forward to seeing you then. Adios.